in our live virtual broadcast. My name is Donna McCartney, and I'm honored to be your worship associate today. The title of our service is Developing a Spiritual Practice. In each heart lives the flame of truth, bringing warmth and light, hope and inspiration to the human journey. Lighting our chalice on Sunday mornings is a way to remind us of that inner flame and the need to nourish it and share it with one another. We're gathering this morning as people of faith with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs. We light our chalice as a beacon of hope in these unsettling times. And in the celebration of the life we share together, even during a pandemic, and as white America is finally coming to understand how cruel and deadly racism hurts themselves as well as people of color. We're delighted to have Helen Schofield lighting our chalice this morning. Helen is a member of our choir and has volunteered in other ways for our community, like sponsoring a holiday collection at our UUFLB for a family in need. Helen, please light the chalice and light yours at home too, if you choose to do so. Thank you very much, Helen. For the wonder and inspiration we seek from sun, stars, and all the lights of heaven, we light this chalice. May the light of understanding illuminate our darkness. May the warmth of caring bring us healing and peace. We are the warmth. We are the light. Please read with me our centering thought for today. It's from Thubten Condren on July's Faith Rocket. The words are on your screen. Please unmute yourselves so we can hear each other as we read. When you plant seeds in the garden, oh, wait a minute. Okay, I thought I was unmuted. Sorry for the technical difficulties there. Let me read the centering thought for today. It's from Thubten Condren on July's Faith Rocket. When you plant seeds in a garden, so Dawn, can you take that off and put it on me, because I have a different centering thought here than on that screen. Okay, so let me start again. When you plant seeds in the garden, you don't dig them up every day to see if they have sprouted yet. You simply water them and clear away the weeds. You know that the seeds will grow in time. Similarly, just do daily spiritual practice and cultivate a kind heart. Abandon impatience and instead be content, creating the causes for goodness. The results will come when they are ready. So we're delighted to have our musical director, Carol Cole, singing and playing the piano for us this morning. We will be muted while Carol sings and plays hymn number 401, Kumbaya, an African-American spiritual that means come by here. Please feel free to sing along from home if you choose. Hymn number 401, Kumbaya. Carol?
Good morning. So I will sing the soothe for you, but if you'd like to join along, the main words are, the first verse is Kumbaya, second one is someone's singing, third one is someone's laughing, and the fourth one is weeping, and the fifth one is praying. So you can always join in with me when I get to those points. Kumbaya. Kumbaya.
Thank you so much, Carol. That was so beautiful. So there's a short affirmation that I invite you to read aloud with me at home. Please unmute yourselves so that we can hear each other as we read. The affirmation is on the screen. Love is the spirit
of this congregation
and service
serves
its law. This
is our
great
covenant.
well
Together
Peace,
to seek the truth and love,
love
seek truth and
to
love,
help one
and
another.
about one another.
So the Dalai Lama says, for the rest of your life, be as meaningful as possible. Engage in spiritual practice. It's nothing more than acting out of a concern for others. If you practice sincerely and with persistence, little by little, step by step, you will gradually reorder your habits and attitudes so as to think less about your own narrow concerns and more about others, and thereby find peace and happiness yourself. Unitarian Universalists accept you for who and what you are. We're a welcoming congregation with membership open to all. We subscribe to no single religious creed, but have gathered a set of principles that guide us as we build a religious community together. Our minister is Reverend Lee Marie Sanchez. She cannot be with us in our virtual service this morning, but she is with us in spirit. Now it's time, if you are so moved, to briefly share a joy or a sorrow. Ours is a sharing community where our joys are amplified and a caring community where our sorrows are lessened. This is not a time for announcements, but rather a moment to express something in your heart. Well, we're going to pause our recording of this service during the joys and sorrows section. One of our congregation goes on even though we are not together. The costs that go with that mission continue even though we cannot pass the basket around on Sunday mornings anymore. Hopefully we'll do that sometime in the near future, but not right now, not for a while. So most of us pledge to give a monthly or yearly amount of money for the mission of our fellowship. In the coming weeks, you will be asked to make a pledge for this new 2020-2021 fiscal year if you haven't been already asked. So on the screen, you see that this is how you could contribute to help us keep our mission for world peace and social justice. Please give generously and with love. You should also know that the links to both the Tithely site and PayPal are in the email that was sent to you to let you know about this service. So it's easy to click on the link and set it up. If you're not receiving emails, or if you want to talk to someone about making a contribution to the UFLB, click on the chat button at the bottom of your screen and leave us your name and email address, and we will contact you. Now it's time for our meditation. Let us draw inside ourselves as we meditate together. If you want to join us, you can close your eyes, relax in your chair, put your feet flat on the floor, shoulders back, hands and arms relaxed. Take a deep breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. Take another breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. Follow the movement of your breath. Let's share a quiet moment of meditation as we deepen our spiritual practice. Thank you. So now Carol Cole will sing and play another song for us, When the Spirit Says Do. This is another African-American spiritual, and this one's arranged by Mark Fruit. We'll be muted, but feel free to sing along from home if you'd like to. Carol?
Unmuted? Yes, so.
You're good.
Okay. So once again, I'll give you the lead words to The Spirit Says Do this time. That's the first verse, by the way. You gotta do when the Spirit says do. You gotta do when the Spirit says do. When the Spirit says do, you gotta do it, Lord. You gotta do when the Spirit says do. Spirit says do. Spirit says do. Spirit says
Thank you so much, Carol. We really enjoy hearing you play every Sunday for us.
Thank you.
So the title of our sermon this morning is Developing a Spiritual Practice. The UU principle that I think ties in with our topic today is the third one. Unitarian Universal congregations affirm and promote acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregations. Developing and expanding our religious practice causes spiritual growth. Today, I want to encourage you to identify your current spiritual practices and think about adding to those so you can add to your spiritual growth. The service this morning is a sermon that appeared in the July issue of Faith Rocket entitled Spiritual Practice by UU minister Darcey Laine. She grew up in her parents' music school. For 16 years, she studied music at the Hedvig School of Music. Occasionally, she would ask her mom if she could quit. They argued the various merits of learning to play an instrument, but ultimately, she believed there were benefits to studying music beyond the music itself. One of those was being able to stand up in front of people confidently, and the other was learning how to practice. Darcey learned the importance of practice if you are seeking any kind of growth in music, in spiritual matters, anything else for that matter. Here's what she said in her sermon. Music students learn as they move from being beginners to advanced players about the importance of practice. They know that if you don't regularly practice, you don't gain skill. Music students also know that if you practice the piece without beauty, without tone, without feeling, that's how you perform it too. If we practice joylessly, the music we make will be joyless. If you hate practicing, it's time to make a change. One thing we know about practice is that practice time is where we're supposed to make mistakes. We must learn compassion for ourselves and patience while we practice. We need a safe space to make ugly sounds, to play things imperfectly as we begin to smooth and polish and shape. We need to be gentle with ourselves. There should be no end goal for spiritual practice as well as musical practice. Of course, the musical practice is you're trying to get better, but spiritual practice is no end goal of trying to reach a certain goal. The whole point of spiritual practice is just doing it regularly. That's the goal. Daily practice of a spiritual exercise is essential in order to have spiritual growth. Darcey says that knowing how to practice is useful in unexpected parts of our lives. I remember when we got a brand new video game called Spyro, and all my friends took a turn playing it. Most of my friends, when it was their turn at the controller, raced forward toward their goal until they plunged accidentally off a cliff and had to start over again with a new life. When my friend Akri, who had studied classical cello for many years, took the controller, she pulled over to a meaningless clearing and started running in circles and making little jumps in the air. "What are you doing?" we all cried impatiently. "There's nothing over there." "I'm practicing," she replied. Her strategy was to learn how to jump and glide in a safe area where death would not be the consequence of messing up. In fact, the skills you learn practicing apply to just about every part of life. It's never clearer than when you watch a toddler practice walking, or obsessively opening and closing doors, or putting things in a box and then dumping them out and then starting over again. It takes hours of repetition to develop skills that now seem second nature to us. Walking, talking, closing and opening doors, putting keys in your pocket and taking them out again later when you need them. That's why we do fire drills, so that in that moment of an actual emergency, the procedure is second nature. She says, "I went to a master class many years ago with the great singer Leontine Price. And when a student asked if she thought about technique as she performed, she told the packed house that the time for thinking about technique is in the practice room. When you perform, you just think about the music you are making, the character you're playing. Spiritual practice is no different in this respect than any other kind of practice. Some days it will not seem like much is happening, but things we repeat day after day have a way of sinking down deep into our muscles and our spirits. There are many stories among healers and ministers of visiting an elder who has lost most or all of her memory. She doesn't recognize family or friends, but when the old hymns of childhood are sung or the rosary beads are placed in her hands, something old and deep wakes up. Her fingers start to move on the rosary. She nods or even sings along with the hymns. What we practice most, we know in a deep way. Our bodies remember, even when our minds are distracted or diminished. There was a funny headline in the satirical paper, The Onion, the other day. She said, "Man who downloaded a $2.99 meditation app prepares to enter lotus plane of eternal serenity." This could have described me at my first meditation class. I, like many other meditators, was constantly frustrated by my early attempts. I wanted to power through to enlightenment, the same way I had as a beginning flute student, wanted to power through to the end of the piece without taking the time in the difficult spots so they could become smooth and clear. I chose forms of meditation that were very challenging for me right off, rather than choosing forms that were enjoyable. So I dreaded my spiritual practice rather than looking forward to it. I was so miserable in my meditation practice that at one point I took a class called Removing Obstacles to Meditation, which was full of other people who also were having trouble meditating. The best advice the teacher gave in that class was encourage yourself. It turns out that beating yourself up for your perceived failings in your spiritual practice is not actually helpful. It's important to be compassionate with yourself as you practice. Then I discovered yoga, she says, which I looked forward to and dreamed about. No matter how much I practiced, I wanted more. I took a break from meditation that lasted almost a decade. I realized that meditation was just one of many spiritual practices. Sure, the Buddha realized enlightenment sitting under the Bodhi tree, but meditation is not temperamentally or developmentally appropriate for everyone. Perhaps it was because of all those years practicing music that I so readily took to practicing yoga. I was reminded of the power of repetition. As I entered the down dog pose the other day, I considered that if I had been practicing yoga for about 12 years, at least 3 times a week, and I took down dog at least 10 times in each of those classes, I had been in the pose for about 20,000 times. When you do something 20,000 times, not only do you learn it more deeply, it changes you. Not everyone's going to be able to twist themselves into all those yoga pretzels you see in photos, but everyone will change and grow if they practice. A longtime yoga teacher called this slow surgery because the capacity it has to change muscles and joints and connective tissue is so powerful. This is why form and alignment are so important in yoga. Yes, if you practice carefully, you can become more flexible and stronger. But if you don't practice mindfully, you can just as easily blow out a shoulder or acquire an array of injuries. So think of all the things that you've done 20,000 times so far in this life. Then it probably includes brushing your teeth, she says, which is why humans alive today have better teeth than any humans who've ever lived before. It probably also includes sitting at a computer, which is why we have problems like carpal tunnel syndrome that millennia of humans have never had in this magnitude before. Even if you don't practice ukulele or meditation or yoga, you're practicing something. You already have a spiritual practice right now, whether you think of it that way or not. The question is, what are you practicing? Some people may not realize they have a spiritual practice, that they have shown kindness or shared a warm smile 20,000 times. It now comes so easily to them, they don't even have to consciously choose to be kind. It arises naturally out of habit. Some folks notice the natural world around them on a daily basis, on their daily run or their walk to work, or they watch the slow growth of a tree as they sip their coffee and looking out the kitchen window in the mornings. They know just by looking at the fresh green shoots whether spring is early or what tree is fighting off parasites. One spring, when the birds and the butterflies don't come back in the same numbers, they're in reduced numbers, they notice a change and they wonder, what's wrong? They have become that in tune with their ecosystem through the years of practice. Practice is a patient expression of our intentions. In the same way that devout practitioners in Hinduism, Buddhism, or Catholicism use a rosary to help them stay connected, as they repeat prayers to the divine, so can our repetitions of scales, downward dogs, or compassionate acts help us stay connected to ourselves and our intentions to grow and bloom. Depending on our intention, the action itself becomes a prayer. In fact, many UUs understand their work helping others or working for social justice as their spiritual practice, and that as their prayer. Darcey Laine says, every life is filled with simple things. When taken all together, they have power. Like the drops of water that wear away a stone, we are shaping ourselves at every moment with a simple repetition of our daily lives, whether we are conscious of it or not. Let us choose carefully what we practice, because that is what we are becoming. So that was a lovely sermon by Darcey Laine. So I want to thank Minister Laine for that beautiful message for us today. And now we're going to take some turns to find out what your current spiritual practice is, if you care to share, and or if you'd like to add a new spiritual practice, what do you think it might be? So if you have something to share in a minute, I'm going to ask you to raise your hand, and then we'll call on you and unmute you when it's your turn. I'll go first. I have a very common spiritual practice of looking into someone's eyes and smiling when I first see them. Many of us do these regular spiritual practices, and we don't think about them. They're as natural as breathing. I also do 2 deliberate spiritual practices every day. The first one's in the morning. I have a phone alarm that goes off around the time I'm finished my coffee. The alarm is a gong that's ringing, and while it rings, I meditate that a golden light filled with love enters my body through my head and fills it up from my toes to the top of my head. At that point, I imagine my glowing body lifting up into the sky, my arms outstretched. At this point, I imagine all that light and love radiating out from my hands to my community, to my state, to my country, to the world, and to the universe. This daily practice improves my mood. It starts my day ready to share light and love with everyone. My second spiritual practice is in the afternoon when I do a 10-minute headspace meditation. It focuses on different topics like improving relationships or improving my sleep patterns, etc. So I'm thinking about adding another spiritual practice after doing research on it this week, and haven't decided yet what I want to do, but I think I'm going to add something else. So now it's your turn. If you have a spiritual practice you want to share, or one that you're thinking about starting, please raise your hand. We'll call on you and unmute you when it's your turn. Who would like to go first? A spiritual practice that you do, and oftentimes they're ones that we don't even realize they're spiritual practices. Oh, I see Peggy. Go ahead, Peggy.
Meditation is a big part of my spiritual practice, and the kind of meditation that I do is focused on mindfulness, which really means being aware, very aware of each precious moment that I'm living in. And it's also focused on compassion, mindful compassion. And when I'm doing that, I find that it helps me let go of past and present, be in the amazingly perfect moment in which I'm currently existing, which is gone a moment later and then is replaced by another one. And when I focus on the compassion part of it, it makes me feel much less separate from other human beings. I feel more connected. I feel that we're more alike. And that sense of connection is not dictated by physical proximity, holding hands, being in the same building. It's on some other level, and that's part of what I call spiritual, the connection that I feel with other human beings and with the world that I live in, that can't be defined in some other way. It's spiritual.
Okay, thank you so much, Peggy. That was beautiful.
Thank you.
Anyone else like to share with us here? Because we've got a lot of quiet folks just contemplate. Oh, Mike, go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I just try to be the best person I can be, help others when they are in need, and maybe someone helps me when I'm in need. That's really it. I don't really look at things up above or anything. We're all right here, and we all need to stick together and help each other. That's all.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. And oftentimes, that's exactly what's happening is we're doing these things that are spiritual practices and they're just normal behavior. And we do it all the time. And consequently, that's our spiritual practice, whether we realize it or not. It's just all the things that we do every day that kind of gives something to the universe. Yeah. Tina, did you want to share with us? Oh, you have to unmute. Can you unmute yourself, Tina?
Yeah.
Oh, there. Oh, no, I can hear you. Go ahead.
I got it. Hang on. Something came up on the screen. Oh, okay, fine. I go out for a walk every morning in my neighborhood. I go past, we have a lot of green belts. And there's a walkway down to the lake, which everything is flowering and growing and all the yards are nicely kept. I always say hello to people as I pass them, or good morning. Mm-hmm. And it's just a thing I do. And sometimes you think people look really grumpy and all of a sudden they look up and they start talking to you. And that's something I always do. And it makes me feel good. I like to be outside. I have a Phoebe bird. I don't know if you know what a Phoebe is, but it comes around and looks for me and I talk to it and it knows my voice. It's even in my yard sometimes, waiting for me to come out and say hello. But then you get to the lake and there's other birds and things going on. And it's just a lovely place to be with people and with nature. So that's my thing.
That's a great spiritual practice. You're communing with the birds and other living things. That's wonderful. And I think that's important too for us to acknowledge people, and especially these times, because people are kind of like avoiding other people. And if we just take a minute to say hi, from 6 feet or more away and just acknowledge people, I think it just makes them feel seen and part of community.
Definitely.
Strangers. Yeah, you can help them become part of your community. All right, Noreen, did you want to share?
Yes, I think Tina and I should go for a walk because we have very identical experiences. I just get so much from my morning walk in exactly the same ways. Where I walk, I see lots of creatures, which to me, that's the wonder of being alive, the beauty of nature. And baby quail. I mean, what's more perfect than that? Baby quail and road runners and things like that. But saying hello to people too. I know that feeling of, greeting someone who doesn't expect it. But when I'm in Nicaragua, that's something that is so dramatic that if I'm walking down the street, the gringo lady, taller than everybody, stuff like that. I just say buenos dias to someone. It's like, wow, the sunrise is in their face, and it feels good to everybody. Anyway, my spiritual practice, when I feel the wonder of the world and what clarifies my thoughts of what I do for the day and what's important to me, it's that walk in the morning. I'm really lucky to have such a beautiful environment.
All right, I agree. Thanks for sharing. I always tell people that where I'm living right now is paradise on earth with the weather. Can't get much better than this. Even it's hot now, but go inland, it's way hotter. Anyway, anybody else there to share? Are we all finished? Oh, go ahead. Yes, please, Catherine.
Hang on. Multiple unmute bounce. I just wanted to talk about how I pick my practices, because mine are kind of scattered, but the purpose of all of the spiritual practices I do for me are about clarity and about getting past whatever noise is in my emotional space on any given day to my highest self. So it's a lot of things that make me feel expansive or quiet or clear. So walking is one of them for me. Swimming in the ocean is really big. It's quiet time that's purely appreciative. I can put all my other stuff aside. Meditating is there, but it's all so that my clearest, kindest self can come to the forefront.
All right, thank you for sharing that. I think a lot of us have a nature kind of spiritual practice because it just renews us and that it lifts our spirits. All right, Tina, you have something else? Oh, unmute though, you have to unmute.
I'm working on it.
Oh, okay.
Wait, I have a thing on the screen. Okay. I just forgot to mention that I noticed a lot of butterflies in the past month, and I have a patch of native milkweed. My neighbor has a patch of tropical milkweed, and the butterflies didn't see it until about a week ago. And then I had one in there for an hour fluttering around. And then yesterday I had another monarch fluttering around. But on her tropical milkweed, one day I saw all these caterpillars, you know, the stripy ones from the monarchs. Mm-hmm. And the next day there were none, because on native milkweed, the caterpillars develop, and the butterflies, a nasty taste. But on tropical, they don't. So the birds come along, figure out, oh, this is a good one, and they eat them all. And the other thing I wanted to say is I also walk in the evening, different times, but it's just behind my house. And I always think dober večer, because that's Slovenian for good, like it's a good evening, but it's specific to twilight time. And one day I said it to a group of, we have a Chabad near close to us, so they're coming back from service on Friday evening, and I said it to a group, and this one man looked at me and he goes, dober večer. And he was Russian, and it's similar. So that was, I don't know why I did it. I just looked at him and I knew I needed to say that to him. And that's just saying hello, but I do it in different ways.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So that was fun.
Thank you for sharing that, Tina. I think that acknowledging other human beings is a huge thing we can all do as a spiritual practice every day. Okay, I think that's everyone who had wanted to have a turn. So now we're going to switch back to Helen, who's going to extinguish our chalice. And Helen, there she is. And if you use those at home, go ahead and extinguish your chalice as well if you want to.
Thank God for my son. Okay.
All right. Thank you so much, Helen. Appreciate
Thank
your
you.
help this morning.
Thank you.
So we extinguish this flame, knowing this its light remains in the warmth and compassion of our hearts until we are together again. Jack Kornfield said, when we let go of our battles and open our hearts to things as they are, then we come to rest in the present moment. This is the beginning and the end of spiritual practice, opening our hearts to what is. As we return to the world of suffering and strain, let us be those who bring ease and assurance to all we encounter. Let us become aware of and deepen our spiritual practice. This will cause our spiritual growth, which will help not only ourselves, but will also benefit others in this world. Go in peace. Namaste. Let's end our service like we always do by singing together our closing song, Let There Be Peace on Earth. You'll be muted at home, but feel free to sing along with Carol. Also, we have our virtual cafe together after the song, so stick around for a chat if you can. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Carol?
With me, let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Carol. It's wonderful. So now we're going to open up so everyone can have a chance to talk and chat if you like. If you're muted, unmute